There's something no one tells you about getting rich. Something that happens long before the money starts to show up, long before things start to work out, long before any visible sign of prosperity. And maybe that's why so many people give up along the way, because most expect wealth to appear visibly, quickly, concretely, but the real sign that abundance is coming isn't external, it's internal. The change begins in the silence of the mind, in the way you start to see life, in the way you begin to react to everyday situations. When abundance is approaching, something very subtle begins to happen inside you, and if you're not paying attention, you'll think nothing is happening. The secret that almost no one sees is that wealth first settles in the mind, then it spreads to the feelings. Only after that does it begin to appear in real life, in money, in opportunities, in choices. Most people want to jump straight to the final part. They want to see money in the bank. They want to feel the security of paying for everything with ease. They want to live without worry. But the reality is that all of that only comes after the mind gets used to the idea of wealth. And that takes time, not because it's difficult, but because we've been conditioned for many years to think small, to doubt, to accept scarcity as normal. If you watch closely, you'll notice when the first internal changes begin. You'll realize that some situations that used to stress you out no longer affect you as much. You'll notice that even without having the money you'd like yet, you start to feel more confident. You begin to look to the future with more hope. You begin to feel that you deserve more. And it's not just a random thought, it's a feeling that starts growing inside, as if something is getting ready, as if, for the first time, you are becoming someone who matches with wealth. That is a clear sign that abundance is on its way. And before we continue, make sure you've already subscribed to the channel. But only do that if you believe you were born to enjoy the best this world has to offer. If that makes sense to you, write in the comments, "I'm ready to prosper," because this simple action reinforces your decision, your choice to open yourself up to something greater, to leave the automatic mode of scarcity and take control of your own life. You might find it strange, but the mind needs repetition. Scarcity has been repeated for many years. Phrases like, "Money doesn't grow on trees," "It's hard to earn money," "Life is tough," "Those born poor die poor." All of this was instilled in your head from a young age, and it became a truth. But it was someone else's truth, it wasn't yours. It was what you heard, what you were taught. But it's not the only possible reality. There's another way to live. And it begins when you change the way you think about wealth. Repeating new phrases such as, "I am ready to prosper," "Abundance belongs to me," "Money flows easily to me," may seem silly at first, but it's not. Every time you say it, you are challenging the old mental pattern you learned. You are telling your mind that there is now a new direction, that you are now preparing for something bigger, and this begins to create a different energy within you, a new disposition, a kind of internal vibration that attracts opportunities you didn't even see before. Another thing that almost no one realizes, when abundance is about to enter your life, you start to feel bothered by things that previously seemed normal. Places you used to frequent begin to bother you. Conversations you once found funny start to seem empty. People who have always been around begin to seem too negative. This isn't arrogance. This is a sign of growth. It's your mind telling you that you don't want that anymore, that you are expanding, that you are leaving the level of scarcity and approaching a wealth mindset. These discomforts aren't bad. They're signs that something new is being born within you. It's as if your soul is warning you, the time is coming. Prepare yourself, clear the space, get rid of what no longer serves you, make room for the new, because abundance requires space, and that space begins within. It begins in the silence of your thoughts, in the kind of conversation you have with yourself, in what you repeat every day when no one is listening. You start to realize you're changing when, even without having achieved anything significant yet, you feel a different kind of calm, a peace without reason, a tranquility that comes from knowing you're on the right path. Even without external proof, something inside you starts to say, "Keep going, it will work out. Don't stop now." This is one of the biggest signs that abundance is about to arrive. It's when you feel you're in the middle of the process, even if the results haven't appeared yet. It's when you keep going, even without applause, even without recognition. because the certainty already exists within you. Another thing that almost no one realizes is that before abundance arrives, it tests you, not as punishment, but as preparation. You will be placed in situations that demand choices. You will have to decide whether to continue thinking small or to start thinking like someone who was born to have more. You will have to choose between reacting as before or acting like someone who already believes in their own worth. These situations are tests. Each decision is like a step, and with each conscious choice, abundance gets closer, because you are proving to yourself that you are ready. If you're listening to this right now and feeling something inside you agreeing with all of it, then know this: it's not by chance. It may seem like just a video, but perhaps it's the beginning of a turning point. Maybe your mind is already opening up, already accepting the idea that you can indeed be rich, not by luck, not by miracle, but by internal construction, because you start to think differently, feel differently, and that changes everything. And when that happens, there's no going back. Life begins to organize itself around this new mindset. If you've made it this far, write in the comments, "I deserve wealth." Say it out loud too. Reinforce this truth and repeat it in the coming days, even if it seems strange at first, because each repetition is like a drop of water shaping a stone. One day at a time, you will transform your mind. You will leave behind everything that limited you. You will truly become someone compatible with wealth, and then, without warning, without fanfare, it begins to appear. Slowly at first, then faster. And when you least expect it, you will realize that you are already living what was once just a desire. Have you ever stopped to observe how people who live in scarcity react when they hear words like prosperity, wealth, abundance? Most react with distrust, others with sarcasm. Some even feel anger. This happens because the mind, when accustomed to scarcity, rejects everything outside of that pattern. The person lives so long in a limited reality that when they hear about the possibility of having more, of living better, of achieving something greater, they automatically shut down. They say to themselves, "And this isn't for me, it's too good to be true. This only happens to rich people." And you know what's most impressive about all this? They don't even realize they're making this choice. It's not conscious, it's automatic. It's as if there's a mental defense system programmed to push away any idea that doesn't fit the scarcity identity that has been built up over the years. This is the invisible block. It's the secret no one sees. The barrier that keeps scarcity active, even when everything seems to be available around them. It's as if abundance is knocking at the door, but the person insists on keeping the door locked. And worse, often they don't even realize they're doing it. They constantly complain about life, bills, bad luck, but they don't realize that the problem isn't outside. It's inside. It's in the way they think, feel, react. It's in that constant internal dialogue that no one else hears, but that determines every decision, every move, every financial choice they make. It's in this silent space, in this mental theater where the real battles take place, that scarcity perpetuates itself. Because there, far from the eyes of others, the person convinces themselves daily that they don't deserve it, can't do it, can't achieve it. A scarcity mindset rejects possibilities. It seeks confirmation that everything is difficult, that nothing changes, that life is a battle. And because the mind is creative, it will find exactly that. More scarcity, more struggle, more difficulty. Not because it's destiny, but because that's what's being fed internally. It's like a dirty lens. Everything seen through it seems dark, confusing, limited. And as long as that lens isn't cleaned, nothing truly changes. A person can change jobs, move to a different city, try new businesses, but if the lens remains the same, the result will always be similar. Because the external scenario doesn't matter when the internal filter is configured to see only limitation. It's like wearing sunglasses and complaining that the world is dark. The world hasn't changed. It's the way of seeing that's distorted. Now think about this. What if that lens started to change? What if little by little you began to allow the idea that wealth can indeed be a part of your life? Not magically, but realistically, rationally, logically. Imagine that inside you there are seeds. Some are seeds of scarcity, others of abundance. What you water grows. The question is, what have you been watering in your thoughts? What words have you been repeating every day, even without realizing it? Because each thought is like a drop of water. A single drop doesn't seem like much, but 1,000 drops a day for months, for years, create rivers. And these rivers carve paths in your mind, forming deep automatic patterns that later seem impossible to change. But they are not impossible, they are just deep. And what has been dug can be filled. New paths can be opened. Words like, I never succeed, it's impossible. I wasn't born for this and this is too difficult, are like water for the seeds of scarcity. They grow and take over. But if you start saying phrases like, everything is getting better, I'm learning, I can prosper, wealth is approaching, you begin to water another part of your mind, a part that was dormant, forgotten, but that has always been there. Always. Since you were born, this part has existed. It's the part that believes, that dreams, that allows itself to imagine a different life. But over time, because of difficult experiences, disappointments and frustrations, you protected this part. You hid it. You covered it with layers and layers of cynicism, disbelief and fear. And now it's there, quiet, waiting for you to remember that it exists. Often, life will put you in situations that seem difficult, not to punish you, but to force you to see what needs to change within yourself. Sometimes scarcity is so common that a person doesn't even realize they're trapped in it. Only when something bothers them, only when the pain hits, do they stop to reflect. And it is at this moment that the choice appears, to continue repeating the old pattern, or to start creating a new one. Because pain, however uncomfortable it may be, has an important role. It acts as an alarm, as a signal that something is not working. And when you learn to listen to this alarm instead of trying to silence it with distractions, with complaints, with blaming others, you begin to realize where the real problem lies. And the real problem is almost always in the way you are relating to reality, not in reality itself. One of the greatest signs that abundance is approaching is the discomfort with the old pattern. You start to tire of complaining, the same negative conversations, the same excuses. You start to get irritated with your own repetitive thoughts. You start to feel the urge to do things differently. This discomfort is not without reason. It's a warning. It's your inner self saying, enough is enough. Now it's time for something new. If you feel this, take it seriously, because that's how it begins. It doesn't begin with money falling from the sky. It doesn't begin with a great opportunity knocking on the door. It begins with an inner discomfort, with restlessness, with a voice inside saying that you deserve more, that you can do more, that you are capable of more. And when you listen to that voice and decide to follow it, even without guarantees, even without knowing exactly how, that's when things start to move. You don't need to change everything at once, but you need to start. Start by observing your thoughts, your words, your reactions. Start noticing when you're feeding the scarcity mindset and consciously stop. Choose another word, choose another reaction, and repeat, even if it seems strange, even if it seems forced. Because in the beginning, that's how it is. But the mind learns through repetition, and the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. In the beginning, you'll catch yourself thinking the old way. You'll notice that scarcity mindset arising automatically. And that's okay, don't blame yourself, just observe, acknowledge it, and then consciously choose a different thought. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be grand. It can be something simple like, I'm learning to think differently. That's enough, because the simple fact that you're noticing the old pattern already shows that you're waking up. You're getting out of autopilot. Notice, nobody learns to play the guitar overnight. Nobody learns to drive perfectly on the first day. Everything requires practice. It's the same with a wealth mindset. You need to repeat, practice, make mistakes, correct them, try again. Until one day, without realizing it, you act differently. You think differently, you feel differently, and you start attracting different situations. Not by luck, but because now you're in a different mental pattern. And when the mental pattern changes, the behavior changes. When the behavior changes, the choices change. When the choices change, the results change. It's a chain reaction, a domino effect. But it all starts with thought. That's why people who study success, who study wealth, always talk about mindset. It's not empty motivational talk. It's the real foundation of all lasting transformation. This change can begin in a very simple way. For example, start the day by giving thanks. Even if you don't have everything you want, be grateful for what you have. For life, for health, for the chance to change. Gratitude is a clear sign of inner wealth. People who constantly complain don't realize what they have. They live blindly. But those who are grateful recognize what they have, and those who recognize what they have receive more. Because gratitude changes your emotional frequency. It takes you out of that vibration of lack, of neediness, of resentment, and puts you in a vibration of recognition, of satisfaction, of fullness. And when you are in that vibration, you make better decisions. You see opportunities that previously went unnoticed. You relate better to people. You take better care of the money you have. Everything improves because you improved internally first. Another powerful habit is daily affirmation. Start with simple phrases. I am becoming a wealthy person. Wealth flows to me naturally. I am at peace with money. Say this every day in the mirror, out loud. Write it in a notebook. Put it on paper. Do this until your mind accepts it as truth. At first, it will resist. It will say it's a lie. It will try to sabotage you. But keep going. Because it is precisely at this moment that you are creating a new neural pathway, a new pattern. Neuroscience has already proven this. When you repeat something several times, the brain creates new connections, literally, physically. And these connections strengthen until what was strange becomes natural. What was difficult becomes automatic. That's why affirmations work. It's not magic. It's mental training. It's conscious reprogramming. Repetition generates results. Not immediate, but inevitable. The human mind functions like a fertile field. Everything that is planted and cared for grows. If you continue to nurture thoughts of scarcity, you will reap scarcity. But if, starting today, you begin to nurture thoughts of prosperity, something will change. It may take a while, but it will change. And when it changes, you will notice. Because the external begins to reflect the internal. People change with you. Situations begin to flow. Money appears in unexpected ways. Ideas emerge more clearly. And it's not a coincidence, it's a direct consequence of your new mental frequency. You have begun to emit a different signal. And the world responds to that signal. It always responds. This is the real secret that nobody sees. Abundance doesn't begin outside. It begins inside. It begins when you decide to think like someone rich, even if you don't yet have money in your pocket. It begins when you treat money with respect, even if it's little. It begins when you are grateful for what you have, instead of complaining about what you lack. It begins when you stop comparing yourself to others and start focusing on your own evolution. It begins when you understand that wealth isn't just about money. It's about mindset. It's about how you see yourself. It's about how you feel about the future. It's about the confidence that you are capable, that you deserve it, that you are on the right path. When this settles within you, the external world has no choice. It adjusts, because you change the script. If you feel something awakening within you right now, write in the comments, "My mind is changing." Say it out loud too. Confirm it with words. Embrace this transformation. Don't let this moment pass as if it were just another video. Use this as a turning point, as a conscious choice. From now on, decide to be someone compatible with wealth. Because when the mind changes, everything changes. And I mean everything. The conversations you have, and I mean everything. The conversations you have, the places you frequent, the opportunities that arise, the people who cross your path. Everything begins to align with this new version of you. With this version that decided to stop accepting scarcity as destiny and began to build abundance as a daily, conscious, intentional choice. When abundance is about to manifest, the external world still seems the same. The bills keep coming. The difficulties still appear. The same daily problems are still there. But inside, something is already different. And that's the secret that almost no one understands. The sign isn't money coming in. It's not a salary increase, it's not winning the lottery. It's when you start reacting differently to all of that. When you stop despairing over lack and begin to have clarity even in tight spots. When you stop chasing miraculous solutions and start trusting the process you are creating within yourself. It's when you look at an overdue bill and instead of panicking, take a deep breath and think, I'll solve this, I always have, I always manage to find a way. This change in reaction may seem small, but it's huge, because it shows that you are no longer being controlled by circumstances. You are beginning to control how you respond to them. This is the moment when most people give up, because they want to see quick results. But wealth isn't built on desperation. It's built on consistency, patience, mental discipline. It's not about working like crazy, but about thinking like someone who was born to have the best. You may not see it now, but this change in mindset is the greatest investment you can make. Because once the mind expands to the thought of abundance, it never goes back to its previous size. It's like learning to read. Once you learn, you can't unlearn. You can even pretend you don't know, but the skill is there. It's the same with a wealth mindset. Once you truly understand it, once you truly feel it inside, there's no going back. There may be setbacks, moments of doubt, but you will always know that there is another way to think. And that knowledge, in itself, changes everything. What many people don't understand is that before abundance becomes real, it first needs to become familiar. You need to get used to the idea of having money, of living well, of not worrying about every penny. And that's difficult when you've lived years in financial hardship. That's why it's so important to train your mind every day, to create a new normal. Even if, on the outside, everything is still tight, inside, you'll already start to feel different. Lighter, more prepared, more willing. Because when abundance finally arrives in your life for real, if you're not familiar with it, you'll be scared. You'll reject it. You'll sabotage it without even realizing it. It's like those stories of people who win the lottery and a few years later are broke again. It wasn't bad luck, it was a lack of internal preparation. Their minds weren't prepared to handle that amount of money. It wasn't familiar, it was strange, and the mind tends to reject anything that's strange. This is a crucial point. You need to become someone who can handle wealth, who knows how to manage it, because money is a consequence of your mindset, not your luck. And if you still think with fear, if you still feel anger towards those who have money, if you still believe it's too difficult, then the money may appear, but it won't stay. It will escape, because your mind is still programmed for scarcity. It's like trying to fill a leaky bucket. You can throw as much money as you want in there, but if there's a hole, it will leak. And the holes in the mind are the thoughts of scarcity, the limiting beliefs, the old fears that were never resolved. As long as these holes are open, the money escapes. It goes back to where it came from, and you keep wondering why the same thing always happens. Why whenever it seems like things are going to get better, something goes wrong. It's not bad luck. It's the mind still operating in the old pattern. And how do you reprogram that? First, stop repeating phrases of defeat. Every time you say, it's difficult, it never works out for me, this isn't for me, your mind takes note. It doesn't question, it accepts. And it starts creating a reality based on that. Instead, say, I am learning to prosper. I am capable. I accept abundance. Repeat these phrases, even if you don't believe them at first. Because the goal isn't to convince anyone outside, it's to convince your own mind. And the mind, however intelligent it may be, works in a very simple way in this aspect. It believes what you repeat. It doesn't judge whether it's true or false. It just registers. If you repeat, I am poor, it registers. If you repeat, I am prosperous, it also registers. The difference is that one of these programs takes you upwards and the other keeps you down. The choice is yours. It always has been. Repetition has power. Because the mind works through patterns, everything that is repeated becomes a habit, and everything that becomes a habit becomes identity. So, if you repeat scarcity, you become scarce. But if you repeat abundance, you transform yourself from within. And this transformation is the true secret. When it happens, the world around you begins to reorganize itself. Opportunities arise, ideas appear, improbable situations begin to align. But it all starts with the mind. It always starts there, because what is outside is a reflection of what is inside. This is an ancient truth repeated for centuries, but few people actually apply it in practice. Everyone wants to change the outcome without changing the cause. They want life to improve without improving themselves first. And it doesn't work that way. It never has. It never will. Do you want a sign that you're on the right track? Pay attention to how you feel when you hear a positive phrase. When you hear that wealth is possible, that prosperity is approaching. If this causes discomfort, it's because scarcity is still dominating. But if even without yet experiencing it, you feel a warmth inside, a desire to believe, then that's already the beginning of change. This shows that your mind is beginning to accept a new idea, and that's very powerful, because acceptance is the first step. Before you have, you need to accept the possibility of having. Before you experience abundance, you need to accept that it can be yours. And when you accept without resistance, without that cynical voice inside saying, "That's nonsense," then the door opens. Then the energy changes. And with the energy changed, everything around you begins to move differently. Another thing that happens when abundance is arriving, you begin to lose the fear of running out, fear of scarcity, fear of not having tomorrow. This is liberating. Because fear is one of the biggest blocks to wealth. It paralyzes you. It makes you act out of desperation. And every decision made out of fear leads to scarcity. Confidence, even in difficult times, attracts unexpected solutions. Because it puts you in a mental state where you see paths that were previously invisible. Fear blinds you. Confidence opens your eyes. And it's not blind, irresponsible, reckless confidence. It's confidence based on the certainty that you are capable of adapting, of learning, of finding solutions. It's the confidence of someone who knows that no matter what happens, they will find a way. They will survive. They will grow. They will evolve. That is the confidence of abundance. And when you carry it within you, things change. Because you act differently, you speak differently, you decide differently. And how do you train that confidence? Start with small actions. For example, stop saying you're broke. Stop repeating that you're always on the edge. Even if that seems true now, don't feed it with words anymore. Instead, say that you're in a process of growth, that you're adjusting your life to live with more abundance. That's not lying, it's choosing what you want to strengthen in your mind, because a lie would be saying you're already a billionaire when you're not. But saying you're in a process of growth, that you're preparing to receive more, that's true. It's a truth in progress. It's a truth you're building now. And the more you reinforce that truth, the more solid it becomes, the more real it becomes. Until one day you look back and realize it's no longer a truth under construction. It's a consolidated truth. You've truly changed. Money doesn't change who you are. It only amplifies them. If you're already a grateful, generous, and disciplined person, when money arrives, those qualities will grow. But if you're someone who constantly complains, who envies those who have more, who sabotages themselves, money won't solve that. It only increases the chaos. That's why it's so important to cultivate the right mindset before wealth arrives. Because when it does, you'll already be prepared. You'll already know how to handle it. You'll already know what to do. You won't get lost. You won't waste it. You won't panic. You'll simply receive it naturally, as if you always knew it was destined for you. And this naturalness, this tranquility, is what differentiates those who maintain their wealth from those who lose it soon after. The difference isn't in the amount of money that arrives, it's in who is receiving it. Start treating yourself like someone who is wealthy. This doesn't mean spending what you don't have, but it means valuing what you have now. Taking care of your space, organizing your things, speaking positively about your future. Wealthy people don't dwell on misfortune. They talk about solutions, ideas, and possibilities. Adopt this pattern, even if no one around you lives like that. You don't need to follow what everyone else does. You need to do what works. And what works is mental clarity, emotional discipline, and focus on what you want to build. It's not about pretending to be rich. It's about acting like someone who respects their own life, who takes care of what they have, who believes in what they are building. When you act like this, you send a signal to the universe, to your own mind, that you are ready. that you deserve it, that you accept it. Many people live in scarcity because they've become accustomed to it, accustomed to having little, to hardship, to suffering. And when something good happens, they even sabotage themselves. Because they believe they don't deserve it, that it's too good to be true, guys. This is a mental trap, and it can only be broken with awareness. You need to tell yourself, I deserve to live well. I accept having more. I am no less than anyone else. And repeat this until it becomes true within you, until you no longer need to convince yourself, until it's automatic, natural, obvious. Because when this becomes obvious to you, the world around you also begins to treat it as obvious. People notice, opportunities appear, doors open, not by magic, but because you change the way you position yourself in the world. You change the energy you carry. You change the message you transmit simply by existing. If you're listening to this now and feel it makes sense, say aloud, my mind is ready to receive abundance, and write in the comments, I am in transformation. This activates a new connection within you. This reinforces your decision. And from there, continue with consistent actions. Reinforce the new mindset every day, with words, with focus, with choices. Because transformation doesn't happen all at once. It happens in layers. It peels away, it reveals, it deepens. And the more you commit to this process, the faster it happens. The more solid it becomes, the more real it becomes. Abundance is closer than you imagine. It won't arrive with noise or celebration. It arrives in the silence of a transformed mind. When you least expect it, you'll look around and realize things have changed. And they changed because you changed first. That's the secret no one sees. But those who practice it, live it, and truly live it. Live with fullness. Live with peace. Live knowing they are no longer victims of circumstances. They are the creators of their own reality. And that is freedom. That is true wealth. Not just in your pocket, but in your soul, in your mind, in your heart. And when you have wealth in these three places, money is just a consequence. Inevitable, natural, deserved. There's a very specific moment in the life of someone moving from scarcity to abundance. It's when they stop identifying with suffering. This is more serious than it seems. Some people have spent so much time in hardship that they've made scarcity a part of their identity. They don't talk about anything else. They only talk about debt, problems, misfortune, all the time. And worse, they believe that somehow this suffering defines them, as if being poor, being down on their luck, always being the one who gets screwed, were part of their personality. And here's the secret no one sees. As long as you continue to cling to this scarcity identity, abundance won't come. Because you've become that, you're not just experiencing scarcity, you are scarcity. And when something becomes identity, the mind fights to maintain it. Because losing your identity, even a bad one, feels like losing yourself. It's terrifying. It's like saying goodbye to who you've always been. And even if that who you've always been is someone who suffers, who struggles, who can't succeed, it still seems familiar. And the mind loves the familiar even when the familiar hurts. It's hard to hear this, but it's true. Wealth doesn't come to those who live feeding off the victim mentality, because the victim doesn't act, only complains. The victim doesn't take control, only points fingers. And as long as you're blaming others, circumstances, childhood, the government, the past, you're telling your mind that you're not in control. And if you believe you're not in control, nothing changes. Change begins when you say, enough. Now I take responsibility for my part. From today on, I create a new reality for myself. That's the turning point. That's the exact moment when the story changes direction. It's not when the money appears. It's not when opportunity knocks. It's when you take command, when you stop waiting for someone to come and save you, and understand that you are the only one who can do it. And that's not selfishness. It's not arrogance. It's maturity. It's courage. It's waking up to the fact that if you want a different life, you need to be a different person. And being a different person starts with accepting that you have power over your own story. And you don't need anyone around you to believe it. You don't need anyone to applaud or support you. The transformation is internal, silent. It begins when you stop repeating the same scarcity narratives and start nurturing new thoughts. And do you know what the first sign that you're changing inside is? You begin to realize you have a choice. Even in bad situations, you see that you can choose how to react. You can choose not to engage in the energy of complaining anymore. You can choose not to repeat negative phrases. You can choose to protect your mind as if it were the most precious thing you possess. Because it is. Your mind is the only place where you have total control. No one can enter there without your permission. No one can plant thoughts you don't accept. No one can force you to think one way or another. You are the guardian of your own mind. And when you truly understand this, when you realize you have this power, everything changes. Because you stop being passive. You stop being a hostage. You become active. You become a creator. When abundance arrives, it doesn't come with a suitcase full of money. It comes with this clarity, the clarity that life changes when you change. This feeling of personal power, of responsibility, of presence, of strength. You begin to look at challenges with a different mindset. Instead of asking yourself, why is this happening to me? You start asking yourself, well, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? What can I do with what I have now? This change in questioning changes your energy, changes your attitude, changes your path. Because different questions generate different answers, and different answers generate different actions, and different actions generate different results. It's that simple, but few people do it. Because it's easier to keep asking the same victim questions. It's more comfortable, it's more familiar, it demands less of you, but it also keeps you exactly where you are. And if you want to get out of where you are, you need to start asking questions that move you forward, not questions that keep you stuck in the past. Another sign that abundance is approaching is the sudden urge to tidy up your life. And I'm not just talking about money, I'm talking about cleaning house. Throwing away what no longer serves you, cutting out habits that harm you, distancing yourself from useless conversations, unfollowing people who only talk about tragedy. All of this is cleansing, cleaning mental space, emotional cleansing, because abundance needs space. And space isn't just physical, it's mental too. You can't receive something new while carrying the old in your heart. It's like trying to put new clothes in a wardrobe overflowing with old torn things that you don't even use anymore, but insist on keeping just because. It doesn't fit. It's impossible. You need to make space. And making space often hurts. Because it means letting go. It means accepting that that phase is over, that that way of living no longer serves you, that those people no longer walk with you. And letting go hurts. But it's necessary. Because holding on to the old for fear of emptiness prevents you from receiving the new. Think about it. Are you ready to have more, to handle the new? Or are you still stuck in grudges, resentments, and old patterns of behavior? Wealth doesn't enter where there's accumulated garbage. It's like trying to put clean water in a glass full of dirt. First you have to empty it, then clean it, and only then fill it with something new. This process can be uncomfortable, but it's necessary. And it's another sign that abundance is approaching, the discomfort of cleaning. When you start to feel the urge to organize everything, to clean everything, to let go of everything that no longer makes sense, that's a sign that something bigger is coming. Your soul knows, your inner self perceives it, and it begins to prepare. Even if your conscious mind doesn't fully understand yet, something inside you already knows it's time to make space, to prepare, to open yourself to what's coming. Perhaps in recent days, you felt a strange urge to isolate yourself, to be silent, to rethink life, to leave certain environments. This is your soul organizing itself. It's as if your inner self is preparing the ground for something greater, and those who don't understand this think it's sadness, that it's loneliness, but it's not. It's internal organization. It's life giving you time to align yourself with what's coming, and the more you respect this silence, the more clarity you gain. Because it is in silence that the answers appear. It is in stillness that you hear the voice of intuition. It is when you stop seeking external validation that you find inner strength. This moment of retreat is not weakness. It's strategy. It's intelligence. It's your higher consciousness telling you, stop for a moment, breathe, reorganize yourself. Because what's coming is big, and you need to be ready. Right now, you need to be your own greatest ally. Don't expect everyone to understand. Not everyone will understand your changes. Some people will say you're acting strangely, that you're full of yourself, that you're out there. But don't worry about that, because your transformation isn't about pleasing anyone. It's about freeing you from your old mentality, from your old victim role, from your old scarcity mindset. And if that requires you to be more reserved for a while, that's okay. Use that time to strengthen yourself. Use that time to plant new seeds in your mind. Use that time to become inside the person you want to be on the outside. Because when the internal transformation is complete, the external one happens as a natural consequence. But if you try to force external change without having changed inside, it won't hold up, it will be superficial, it will be fragile. And at the first difficulty, you'll revert to the old pattern. That's why real transformation always begins from within. Always. You need to train yourself to think like someone who already lives in abundance. Start imagining your ideal day. What would your routine be like if you already had the money you desire? How would you wake up? How would you dress? What would you eat? Who would you spend time with? Where would you focus your attention? This isn't illusion. This is direction. This is how the mind begins to get used to the idea of wealth. Because if it doesn't know where it's going, it will stay in the same place. The mind needs a target. It needs a vision. It needs something to aim for. And when you give it that vision, when you show it what it would be like, it starts working in your favor. It starts looking for opportunities that bring you closer to it. It starts making you notice things that previously went unnoticed. It starts subtly guiding you down the path that leads you there. But it only does this if you show it the way. If you don't have clarity about what you want, the mind can't help you. It gets lost, it gets confused, and when the mind is confused, life becomes confused too. Here's a simple yet powerful exercise. Every time you have a thought of scarcity, immediately replace it with an affirmation of abundance. For example, if you think, "I don't have the money for that," say, "I'm organizing myself to live with more." If you think, "This never works for me," say, "Now I'm doing things differently." You don't need to pretend everything is okay. You just need to choose words that don't hold you back in the past, words that set you in motion, words that open doors, not close them. Because how you talk to yourself determines how you act, and how you act determines the results you achieve. Everything is connected. And it all starts with words, with thoughts, with the conscious choice to no longer feed what holds you back and to start feeding what liberates you. If you've made it this far and feel ready to leave scarcity behind, say out loud now, "I am leaving the old mindset behind." And write in the comments, "My new reality begins now." Because when you write, you reinforce, you declare, and that has power. This simple act can be the beginning of your new story. And if you repeat this every day, even if no one sees, even if no one believes, you will see. Abundance begins to approach. Not magically, naturally, inevitably. Because you changed the frequency, you changed the pattern, you changed your identity. And when identity changes, everything changes along with it. It comes slowly. First as clarity, then as confidence, then as small opportunities, and when you least expect it, as concrete results. Because the mind creates. And what you are creating now is a new path. A path that begins within, that grows silently, but that transforms everything. It transforms your way of thinking, feeling, and acting. It transforms your way of seeing the world, seeing people, seeing yourself. And when this internal transformation is complete, the external world has no choice. It adjusts. Because you are no longer the same person. You no longer carry the same energy. You no longer emit the same signal. And the universe responds to the signal you emit. It always has. It always will. The difference is that now you know this, and knowing this, you can consciously choose which signal you want to emit, which reality you want to create, which life you want to live. The greatest transformation that can happen in your life isn't having money. It's ceasing to think like someone who lives in scarcity. Because money alone isn't the cause of wealth. it's the consequence. What builds true abundance is how you position yourself in life, how you think about yourself, about what you deserve, about what you are capable of having. And this process of internal change is invisible. Almost no one sees it, but those who feel it know it's real. Because when you start to break free from the automatic scarcity mindset, something inside you begins to align with a new life pattern. It's as if, suddenly, you begin to see possibilities where before you only saw obstacles. It's as if a veil falls, as if you wake up from a trance and realize you were living on autopilot, repeating patterns that weren't even truly yours. They were inherited, they were learned, they were imposed by life, by circumstances, by the people around you. But they weren't consciously chosen by you, and when you realize this, when you truly understand that you were living according to old programming, then you can begin to reprogram yourself. Abundance doesn't manifest chaotically, it's organized. It appears when you begin to bring order within yourself. Order in your thoughts, your words, your habits. That's the silent secret. And this order begins with small choices. You choose what you repeat. You choose where you place your attention. You choose who you spend your time with. Each of these decisions, however small they may seem, is building your path to prosperity. Because prosperity isn't an event, it's a construction. It's an accumulation of small correct decisions, consistently repeated over time. It's like building a house. You don't build a house in a day. You lay one brick, then another, and at first it seems like nothing is happening. It seems like that pile of bricks will never become a house. But if you continue, if you persist, one day you look and the house is finished. Abundance works like that. It's brick by brick, thought by thought, choice by choice. And that's why so many people don't realize they're hindering their own abundance, because they still believe that thought is just thought, that it makes no difference. But it does, because every action begins with a thought. And if you keep thinking that it's difficult, that you can't do it, that it will never get better, then even when an opportunity arises, you'll let it pass, because your mind isn't prepared to receive it. It's not ready to identify it as something positive. You'll call it luck, coincidence, a scam. You'll sabotage it, you'll run away, you'll find 1,000 reasons not to try, not to risk it, not to believe, and the opportunity passes, and you keep complaining that nothing ever comes your way. But it did. You just didn't see it, or you saw it and rejected it, because your mind was programmed to reject. It was configured for no, for distrust, for fear. And as long as that configuration doesn't change, nothing new can enter. Want a clear example of this? Observe how you react when you receive unexpected money. Some people, when this happens, immediately think, "I'll need this later. I know a new bill is coming. It's too good to be true." This type of reaction reveals how the mind is still trapped in scarcity. Even when something good happens, it finds a way to spoil it, and that's where mental re-education comes in. You need to train your mind to receive without fear, to accept what is good, to believe that you can indeed have a light, prosperous, abundant life. Because if you don't train this, if you don't reprogram this automatic reaction, you will continue to reject what is good. You will continue to find problems in everything. You will continue to wait for the other shoe to fall. And do you know what happens when you live expecting something bad to happen? You create tension. You create anxiety. You create an emotional state that attracts exactly what you fear. Not by magic, but because you act differently when you are afraid. You make bad decisions, you shut down, you protect yourself too much. And in doing so, you miss real opportunities. Another sign that abundance is approaching is your relationship with time. A person living in scarcity is always in a hurry, always late, always trying to solve everything in a rush. But a person who is adopting a wealth mindset begins to organize themselves better. They begin to value their own time. They stop being distracted by things that don't add value. They stop occupying themselves with people who only drain them, because they understand that time is wealth, and that wasting time is wasting life. This changes how you act in your daily life. It changes your priorities, it changes your choices. You start saying no to things you previously accepted just to please others. You start protecting your time. You start choosing better, where you invest your energy. And this isn't being selfish. It's being intelligent. It's being strategic. It's understanding that you can't give what you don't have. And if you exhaust your time, your energy, your patience on things that don't move you forward, there won't be anything left for what really matters, for what can truly transform you. And you know what's even more interesting? You don't need money to start behaving like someone who thinks with abundance. It's something that begins with posture, with dignity, with how you treat yourself. Have you ever seen a rich person speak of themselves with disdain? Of course not, because those who live in abundance are aware of their own worth, and that's what you need to develop now. Start treating yourself as someone important. Value your word, your presence, your energy. Stop putting yourself last. This isn't arrogance, it's self-respect. And the universe responds to that with more respect too. People start treating you differently. Opportunities start appearing differently. Because you've changed the message you're transmitting. You've changed the energy you're projecting. And the world notices. It always notices. It may not be conscious, it may not be explicit, but people sense when someone values themselves. And they tend to value others too, in the same way they sense when someone diminishes themselves, and they tend to diminish others too. It's automatic, it's natural. That's how it works. Abundance begins when you stop accepting crumbs. Crumbs of attention, crumbs of friendship, crumbs of opportunities. Stop insisting on places and people who don't value you. Because as long as you're stuck on what diminishes you, there will be no space for what can elevate you. Let go of what is small. It's not about pride, but about alignment. You are leveling up. And that requires difficult choices sometimes, but every choice made consciously strengthens your new identity. Because every time you say no to what is small, you are saying yes to something bigger. Every time you move away from what diminishes you, you are making space for what expands you. And it hurts at first, because it means temporary loneliness. It means feeling misunderstood. It means sometimes walking alone for a while. But it's necessary, because you can't level up carrying the weight of the previous level. You need to let go. You need to let go. You need to trust that by freeing yourself from what is small, you are making space for what is great. This new you is someone who thinks big, even in difficult times. Someone who doesn't let fear dominate them. Someone who knows that everything happening now is preparing for something better. And this mindset begins to attract the new. You start finding solutions you didn't see before. You start noticing signs. New people appear, doors open, and all of this seems like coincidence. But it's not. It's a response to the internal change you're making. Because the external always responds to the internal, always, without exception. It may take a while, it may seem like it's not working, but it is, because that's the law. As within, so without. What you cultivate internally eventually manifests externally. There's no escaping it. There's no circumventing it. It's a law. It works for everyone, all the time. And when you truly understand this, when you truly accept this truth, you stop fighting against life and start working with it. You start using this law to your advantage, and this becomes increasingly clear. You'll realize that situations that once brought you down no longer have the same weight. Problems that seem gigantic now seem manageable. This doesn't mean life has become perfect. It means you've become stronger, more centered, more stable. And that's a solid foundation for wealth. Because abundance loves emotional stability, loves clarity, loves responsibility. It all starts within. It's silent, but powerful. And when you develop this inner stability, when you build this solid foundation, nothing from the outside can shake you like before. You still feel. You remain human, but you no longer get lost. You no longer fall apart. You no longer despair. Because you know who you are, you know where you're going, you know you have the capacity to weather any storm. And this certainty, this confidence, is magnetic. It attracts the right people. It attracts the right opportunities. It attracts the right results. If you feel you're starting to change inside, even if you haven't seen results in your wallet yet, trust that. This is the beginning. And it's the most important part. Because everything that comes after, will be a consequence of this new mental pattern you're creating. And to reinforce this, say aloud now, every day I am more prepared to live in abundance. And write in the comments, I already think like someone who is rich. These statements shape your mind. And the more you repeat them, the truer they become, because the mind learns through repetition. And when something is repeated enough, it becomes internal truth. It becomes a belief. It becomes identity. And when it becomes identity, you no longer need to strive. You simply act from this new identity, naturally, automatically, without resistance. And then the results appear fluidly, organically, inevitably. It doesn't matter how long you've been trapped in scarcity. Change can begin now, with a decision, with a choice, with a new thought. And when this new reality is fully established within you, life will have no choice. It will reflect it in your external world, because the world is a mirror. It shows you every day what is dominating your mind. If you look at the world and see scarcity, it's because you have scarcity within. If you look and see abundance, it's because you have abundance within. The world doesn't change. What changes is you. And when you change, your perception changes. And when your perception changes, your choices change. And when your choices change, your reality changes. It's a chain. It's sequential. It's logical. It's predictable. And it works for everyone who applies it. If today you look around and don't like what you see, understand this as a temporary reflection. And instead of complaining, start planting new thoughts. Cultivate new habits. Strengthen new ideas. Because the harvest always comes. And abundance is approaching step by step with each small change you choose to make. With each new thought you plant. With each different word you speak. With each aligned attitude you take. All of this is building. All of this is accumulating. And one day, when you least expect it, you will look around and realize everything has changed. And it changed because you changed first. This is the secret that no one sees, but that everyone who lives in abundance practices, consciously or not. They changed inside, and the world responded. Always responds, always will respond, because that is the law, and the law never fails. The greatest transformation that can happen in your life isn't having money, it's ceasing to think like someone who lives in scarcity. Because money alone isn't the cause of wealth, it's the consequence. What builds true abundance is how you position yourself in life, how you think about yourself, about what you deserve, about what you are capable of having. And this process of internal change is invisible. Almost no one sees it, but those who feel it know it's real. Because when you start to break free from the automatic scarcity mindset, something inside you begins to align with a new life pattern. It's as if suddenly you begin to see possibilities where before you only saw obstacles. It's as if a veil falls, as if you wake up from a trance and realize you were living on autopilot, repeating patterns that weren't even truly yours. They were inherited, they were learned, they were imposed by life, by circumstances, by the people around you, but they weren't consciously chosen by you. And when you realize this, when you truly understand that you were living an old program, then you can begin to reprogram. Because nobody can change what they don't recognize, nobody can transform what they don't see. And the first big change happens when you look inside and admit, I've been living on autopilot. I've been repeating patterns that lead me nowhere. I've been feeding thoughts that only hold me back. And this admission, however painful it may be, is liberating. Because it puts you in control. It takes you out of the role of victim and puts you in the role of creator. And when you become the creator of your own reality, everything changes. Literally everything. Abundance doesn't manifest chaotically, it's organized. It appears when you begin to bring order within yourself. Order in your thoughts, your words, your habits, that's the silent secret. And this order begins with small choices. You choose what you repeat. You choose where you place your attention. You choose who you spend your time with. Each of these decisions, however small they may seem, is building your path to prosperity. Because prosperity isn't an event, it's a construction. It's an accumulation of small, correct decisions, consistently repeated over time. It's like building a house. You don't build a house in a day. You lay one brick, then another, and at first it seems like nothing is happening. It seems like that pile of bricks will never become a house. But if you continue, if you persist, one day you look and the house is finished. Abundance works like that. It's brick by brick, thought by thought, choice by choice. And what separates those who build from those who give up is patience. It's the ability to continue even when you don't see immediate results. Because most people want results yesterday. They want to plant today and harvest tomorrow. But it doesn't work that way. It never has. Nature has its cycles, and so do you. You plant, water, care for, wait. And in due time the harvest comes, it always comes. For those who plant, for those who water, for those who don't give up halfway through the process. That's the secret that few have the patience to apply. Because we live in a world that sells instant results, that promises overnight transformation. But true transformation, the kind that lasts, the kind that sustains, that takes time. And those who understand this have an advantage, because they don't give up at the first obstacle. They don't abandon at the first sign of difficulty. They continue, they persist, they build. And that's why so many people don't realize they're hindering their own abundance. Because they still believe that thought is just thought, that it makes no difference, but it does. Because every action begins with a thought, and if you keep thinking that it's difficult, that you can't do it, that it will never get better, then even when an opportunity arises, you'll let it pass, because your mind isn't prepared to receive it. It's not ready to identify it as something positive. You'll call it luck, coincidence, a scam. You'll sabotage it. You'll run away. You'll find 1,000 reasons not to try, not to risk it, not to believe, and the opportunity passes. And you keep complaining that nothing ever comes your way, but it did. You just didn't see it, or you saw it and rejected it. Because your mind was programmed to reject. It was configured for no, for distrust, for fear. And as long as that configuration doesn't change, nothing new can enter. It's like having a mental filter that only lets the negative through. Only lets in what confirms scarcity, and blocks everything that could take you out of it. This filter was created over years, from bad experiences, from disappointments, from frustrations, and it was useful at some point. It was a protection, a way to not suffer so much, but now it has become a prison. Because it no longer protects you, it limits you, it prevents you from growing, from evolving, from prospering, and you need to deactivate this filter, consciously, intentionally, every day, until it stops being automatic, until the new programming is installed. And this requires effort, it requires attention, it requires you to be awake, present, observing your own thoughts and choosing which ones you will nurture and which ones you will let pass. Want a clear example of this? Observe how you react when you receive unexpected money. Some people, when this happens, immediately think, "I'll need this later. I know a new bill is coming. It's too good to be true." This type of reaction reveals how the mind is still trapped in scarcity. Even when something good happens, it finds a way to spoil it. And that's where mental re-education comes in. You need to train your mind to receive without fear, to accept what is good, to believe that you can indeed have a light, prosperous, abundant life. Because if you don't train this, if you don't reprogram this automatic reaction, you will continue to reject what is good. You will continue to find problems in everything. You will continue to wait for the other shoe to fall. And do you know what happens when you live expecting something bad to happen? You create tension. You create anxiety. You create an emotional state that attracts exactly what you fear. Not by magic, but because you act differently when you are afraid. You make bad decisions. You close yourself off. You protect yourself too much. And in doing so, you miss real opportunities. Because opportunity requires openness. It requires a willingness to try, to take risks, to believe. And when you're closed off by fear, nothing gets through, nothing moves. You become stagnant, stuck in the same place, complaining that nothing changes. But you're the one who isn't changing. You're the one who keeps repeating the same mental patterns that have always kept you in scarcity. And as long as you don't change that, as long as you don't train your mind to receive, to accept, to believe that good things can indeed happen to you, you'll continue in the same cycle. You'll continue to see opportunities pass you by. You'll continue to say that life is unfair, but life isn't unfair. Life is a response. It responds to what you emit, to what you believe, to what you feed internally. And if you feed fear, distrust, negativity, that's what comes back to you. Always. Another sign that abundance is approaching is your relationship with time. A person living in scarcity is always in a hurry, always late, always trying to solve everything in a rush. But a person who is adopting a wealth mindset begins to organize themselves better. They begin to value their own time. They stop being distracted by things that don't add value. They stop occupying themselves with people who only drain them, because they understand that time is wealth, and that wasting time is wasting life. This changes how you act in your daily life. It changes your priorities. It changes your choices. You start saying no to things you previously accepted just to please others. You start protecting your time. You start choosing better where you invest your energy. And this isn't being selfish, it's being intelligent. It's being strategic. It's understanding that you can't give what you don't have. And if you exhaust your time, your energy, your patience on things that don't move you forward, there won't be anything left for what really matters, for what can truly transform you. And understand this: how you use your time reveals what you truly value. Not what you say you value, but what you truly value, because actions don't lie. Words can lie. Intentions can lie. But actions don't. If you spend hours on social media complaining about life, that shows where your energy is going. If you spend hours in empty conversations that add nothing to your life, that shows your priorities. If you spend the whole day busy but doing nothing that brings you closer to your goals, that shows you're filling time, not using time. And there's a huge difference between filling and using. Filling is reactive. It's being busy for the sake of being busy. It's doing anything to avoid feeling empty, to avoid facing what needs to be faced. Using, on the other hand, is intentional. It's consciously choosing where to put your energy. It's knowing what matters and directing your time towards it. And when you start using your time instead of just filling it, your life changes. Because you start producing results. You start moving forward. You start building something real. And abundance responds to that, because abundance loves focus, love intention, love clarity. And when you demonstrate these qualities in how you use your time, abundance follows, inevitably. And you know what's even more interesting? You don't need money to start behaving like someone who thinks with abundance. It's something that begins with posture, with dignity, with how you treat yourself. Have you ever seen a rich person speak of themselves with disdain? Of course not, because those who live in abundance are aware of their own worth, and that's what you need to develop now. Start treating yourself as someone important. Value your word, your presence, your energy. Stop putting yourself last. This isn't arrogance, it's self-respect, and the universe responds to that with more respect too. People start treating you differently. Opportunities start appearing differently, because you've changed the message you're transmitting. You've changed the energy you're projecting. And the world notices, it always notices. It may not be conscious, it may not be explicit, but people sense when someone values themselves, and they tend to value them too. In the same way they sense when someone diminishes themselves, and they tend to diminish themselves too. It's automatic, it's natural. That's how it works. Think about how you treat someone who puts themselves down, someone who is always apologizing, always putting themselves down, always saying they're not good enough. You might even feel sorry for that person, but you don't respect them. You don't admire them. You don't see them as capable, because they don't see themselves that way. And if they don't see themselves that way, how will you? Now think of someone who values themselves, who speaks firmly, who takes a clear stance, who doesn't accept being treated any old way. You respect that person, even if you don't agree with them. Even if you don't like them, you respect them, because they respect themselves, and that changes everything. It changes how you are treated. It changes the opportunities that come your way. It changes the relationships you attract. It changes your entire reality. And it starts with a simple decision. I will treat myself as someone valuable, even if no one around me recognizes it yet. Even if my bank account doesn't reflect it yet, I will treat myself with the respect I deserve. and the world will adjust. Abundance begins when you stop accepting crumbs. Crumbs of attention, crumbs of friendship, crumbs of opportunities. Stop insisting on places and people who don't value you. Because as long as you're stuck on what diminishes you, there will be no space for what can elevate you. Let go of what is small. It's not about pride, but about alignment. You are leveling up, and that requires difficult choices sometimes, but every choice made consciously strengthens your new identity. Because every time you say no to what is small, you are saying yes to something bigger. Every time you move away from what diminishes you, you are making space for what expands you. And that hurts at first, because it means temporary loneliness, it means feeling misunderstood, it means sometimes walking alone for a while. But it's necessary, because you can't level up carrying the weight of the previous level. You need to let go. You need to let go. You need to trust that by freeing yourself from what is small, you are making space for what is great. And that trust doesn't come easily, because you've been conditioned to believe you need to hold on, that you need to maintain, that you need to be content with what you have because nothing better might ever come along. But that's a lie. That's scarcity programming. That's fear speaking. And fear will always want to keep you in the familiar, even if the familiar is bad, even if the familiar suffocates you, because fear prefers known suffering to the possibility of the unknown. And as long as you listen to fear, you'll remain trapped. You'll continue accepting crumbs. You'll stay in places that diminish you, in relationships that drain you, in situations that keep you small. But when you decide enough is enough, that you deserve more, that you're no longer going to settle for less than you're worth, then life changes. Because you've changed. You've raised the standard. You've lifted the bar. And the universe, which always responds to your internal pattern, begins to deliver things that correspond to this new level. It begins to connect you with people who value you. It begins to show you opportunities that expand you. It starts giving you what you always deserved but wouldn't accept because you were too busy holding on to crumbs. This new you is someone who thinks big, even in difficult times. Someone who doesn't let fear dominate them. Someone who knows that everything happening now is preparing for something better. And this mindset begins to attract the new. You start finding solutions you didn't see before. You start noticing signs. New people appear, doors open, and all of this seems like coincidence, but it's not. It's a response to the internal change you're making, because the external always responds to the internal, always, without exception. It may take a while. It may seem like it's not working, but it is, because that's the law. As within, so without. What you cultivate internally eventually manifests externally. There's no escaping it. There's no circumventing it. It's a law. It works for everyone, all the time. And when you truly understand this, when you truly accept this truth, you stop fighting against life and start working with it. You start using this law to your advantage. You start intentionally planting what you want to harvest. You start cultivating internally what you want to see externally. And that gives you immense power, because you stop being a victim and become a creator. You stop reacting and start acting. You stop waiting for things to get better and start creating improvement. And when you act from that place of power, responsibility, and awareness, the results appear. They may not appear when you want them to. They may not appear in the way you imagined, but they appear, they always appear, because you are planting, you are watering, you are caring, and everything that is planted and cared for grows. It's a law of nature. It's a law of life. It's a law of existence, and this becomes increasingly clear. You'll realize that situations that once brought you down no longer have the same weight. Problems that seemed gigantic now seem manageable. This doesn't mean life has become perfect. It means you've become stronger, more centered, more stable, and that's a solid foundation for wealth, because abundance loves emotional stability, loves clarity, loves responsibility. It all starts within. It's silent, but powerful. And when you develop this inner stability, when you build this solid foundation, nothing from the outside can shake you like before. You still feel. You remain human, But you no longer get lost. You no longer fall apart. You no longer despair. Because you know who you are, you know where you're going, you know you have the capacity to weather any storm. And this certainty, this confidence, is magnetic. It attracts the right people. It attracts the right opportunities. It attracts the right results. Because you've stopped being someone unstable, unpredictable, chaotic. You've become someone solid, reliable, firm. And people notice this. Opportunities notice this. The universe notices this. And it starts treating you accordingly. It starts entrusting you with bigger things. It starts giving you bigger responsibilities. It starts giving you bigger rewards. Because you've demonstrated that you can handle it, that you're ready, that you have the internal structure to handle what's coming. And that's essential, because if you don't have internal structure, it doesn't matter if big things come your way. You won't be able to handle them. You'll crumble. You'll sabotage yourself. You'll lose. And you'll go back to where you were. But when you build the foundation first, when you develop stability first, then you're ready. Then you can receive and handle and grow even more. If you feel you're starting to change inside, even if you haven't seen results in your wallet yet, trust that. This is the beginning. And it's the most important part, because everything that comes after will be a consequence of this new mental pattern you're creating. And to reinforce this, say aloud now, every day I am more prepared to live in abundance. And write in the comments, I already think like someone who is rich. These statements shape your mind. And the more you repeat them, the truer they become. Because the mind learns through repetition. And when something is repeated enough, it becomes internal truth. It becomes belief. It becomes identity. And when it becomes identity, you no longer need to strive. You simply act from this new identity, naturally, automatically, without resistance. And then the results appear fluidly, organically, inevitably, because you are no longer forcing anything. You are no longer trying to be someone you are not. You have become that person. You have internalized that identity. And now everything you do flows from it. Your choices, your decisions, your actions, your reactions. Everything is aligned with this new identity of abundance. And when there is this internal alignment, the external world has no choice. It adjusts, it reorganizes, it transforms to reflect who you have become. And this isn't instantaneous. It takes time, but it's inevitable, because the law never fails. As within, so without. What you are inside eventually manifests outside, always, without exception. It doesn't matter how long you've been trapped in scarcity. Change can begin now, with a decision, with a choice, with a new thought. And when this new reality is fully installed within you, life will have no choice. It will reflect it in your external world, because the world is a mirror. It shows you every day what is dominating your mind. If you look at the world and see scarcity, it's because you have scarcity within. If you look and see abundance, it's because you have abundance within. The world doesn't change. What changes is you. And when you change, your perception changes. And when your perception changes, your choices change. And when your choices change, your reality changes. It's a chain. It's sequential. It's logical. It's predictable. And it works for everyone who applies it. It's not theory. It's not empty philosophy. It's mechanics. It's how things work. And the sooner you accept this, the sooner you stop fighting this truth and start working with it, the faster your life will change. Because you will stop wasting energy trying to change the world out there. You will stop complaining about circumstances, stop blaming others, and start focusing on the only place where you have real control, within yourself. And when you focus there, when you work there, when you transform there, everything else transforms along with it, automatically, naturally, inevitably. If today you look around and don't like what you see, understand this as a temporary reflection. And instead of complaining, start planting new thoughts, cultivate new habits, strengthen new ideas, because the harvest always comes, and abundance is approaching step by step with each small change you choose to make. With each new thought you plant, with each different word you speak, with each aligned attitude you take, all of this is building, all of this is accumulating, and one day, when you least expect it, you will look around and realize everything has changed. And it changed because you changed first. This is the secret that no one sees, but that everyone who lives in abundance practices, consciously or not. They changed inside, and the world responded, always responds, always will respond. Because that is the law, and the law does not fail. The law makes no exceptions. The law does not choose favorites. It works for everyone the same way. If you plant scarcity, you reap scarcity. If you plant abundance, you reap abundance. It's simple, it's straightforward, it's fair, and it's available to you now. At this very moment, you don't need to wait. You don't need to ask permission. You don't need anyone's authorization. You just need to start. Start changing from within. Start planting new thoughts. Start cultivating a new identity. And trust that if you do the inner part, the outer part will adjust. Because it always adjusts. For everyone who applies it. And you can be next. It can be now. It can be today. The choice is yours. It always has been. You'll realize you're approaching abundance when you stop feeling envious of those who have more than you. This is one of the strongest signs. Because those still dominated by scarcity feel anger at the success of others. They are bothered by the progress of others. They judge, criticize, and diminish. But those who have already transformed their mindset begin to look differently. They begin to admire. They begin to learn. They begin to ask themselves, what does this person do differently? What can I do in my life to improve as well? And this change of perspective is revolutionary, because it shows that you are no longer in the victim's position. You are no longer in the position of someone who compares themselves to feel inferior. You are in the position of someone who observes to learn, who recognizes the success of others as proof that it is possible, as inspiration, as a map. And when you can look at someone who has achieved what you want, and, instead of feeling anger, feel curiosity, feel a desire to understand the path, then you have taken a giant step. Because you stopped seeing the other person as a threat and started seeing them as a reference. He stopped thinking that his success diminishes him and began to understand that it shows him what is possible. And that changes everything. It changes his energy. It changes his choices. It changes what he attracts. Because envy attracts more scarcity. But admiration, curiosity, a desire to learn, that attracts growth. It attracts evolution. It attracts abundance. This kind of thinking shows that you're no longer on autopilot with negative comparisons, that you're starting to see things differently. Because envy is born from scarcity. It's a feeling that says, if the other person has it, I'll have none. As if there were little in the world, as if someone else's success were a threat to you. But that's not true. The world is abundant. Life is abundant. And the more you recognize this, the more you make room to experience it too. Because while you believe there's little, you fight. You compete, you resent, you root against others. And all of that is scarcity energy. Energy that keeps you trapped exactly where you don't want to be. But when you understand that there's room for everyone, that one person's success doesn't prevent another's, that abundance isn't limited, then you relax. Then you stop fighting against others and start working in your own favor. You start focusing on your own growth instead of measuring how much others have grown. And that liberates you. It liberates your energy. It liberates your mind. It liberates your potential. Because you're no longer wasting energy on envy, comparison, or resentment. You're channeling all of that into your own development, into your own advancement. And when you do that, when you truly do that, the results appear, inevitably. Another sign that no one sees is when you start to see value where you previously saw problems. For example, before you saw work as punishment, now you start to see it as a training ground, a place where you can develop patience, discipline, and consistency. Before you saw a challenge as a burden, now you begin to understand that it is there that you will become stronger, more prepared, more capable. This type of thinking is rare, but it is precisely this that begins to open invisible doors. Because most people run away from challenges. They run away from hard work. They run away from what requires effort. And that's why they stay in the same place. Always in the same place. Complaining that nothing changes. But when you start to see the challenge as an opportunity for growth, You put yourself on another level. You separate yourself from the masses. You become someone rare, someone who doesn't run away, someone who faces challenges, someone who learns. And rare people attract rare opportunities, because the market, the world, life all need people who face challenges, people who solve problems, people who don't give up. And when you become that person, when you develop that mindset, you become valuable. And what is valuable is always rewarded. Always. It may take time, it may not be immediate, but it's inevitable, because value generates value, and those who are valuable receive value, in the form of money, in the form of opportunities, in the form of respect, in the form of growth. A scarcity mindset wants everything fast, easy, and with little effort. An abundance mindset, on the other hand, understands that the growth process is necessary. That results only come after preparation. That time is an ally, not an enemy. And when you start thinking like this, something inside you changes. You stop rushing, but you also stop procrastinating, because now you understand the value of each small action, done with intention. You understand that you don't need to do everything today, but you need to do something today, something that brings you closer to what you want, something that builds, that accumulates, that adds up. And when you do this every day, when you take small but consistent steps, you go far, much further than those who take big steps but give up halfway, because consistency beats intensity. It always has. It always will. The person who trains for 1 hour a day, every day, goes further than the person who trains for 10 hours in one day and then stops. The person who saves a little every month goes further than the person who saves a lot once and then spends it all. Because the secret isn't in the intensity of the moment, it's in consistency over time. And when you understand that, when you truly accept that, you stop looking for shortcuts. You stop looking for magic formulas. You stop waiting for something miraculous to happen, and you start building brick by brick, day after day. And that construction, because it's solid, because it's consistent, because it's real, doesn't crumble, it doesn't disappear. It stays, it grows, it multiplies. This is the secret almost no one wants to hear. What changes your life isn't a big event. It's what you do every day. It's what you repeat, what you think, what you feed with your words and actions. It's not the expensive course, nor the miraculous tip, nor the influential contact. It's your daily stance. It's how you behave when no one is watching. It's how you deal with your own thoughts. Because in the end, no one is with you 24 hours a day. No one knows what you think when you're alone. No one knows what conversation you have with yourself. But you know, and your mind knows. And it's this internal conversation, repeated every day, that is shaping your reality. If you speak badly of yourself, if you belittle yourself, if you repeat that you can't, that you're not capable, that you don't deserve it, this is programming your mind for failure, for scarcity, for limitation. But if you consciously choose to speak differently to yourself, if you choose to encourage yourself, to support yourself, to strengthen yourself, this programs your mind for success, for abundance, for expansion. And all of this happens in private. Nobody sees, nobody knows. But the results appear, they always appear. Because what you cultivate in private manifests in public, always. And when you understand this, when you realize the power you have over your own mind, over your own thoughts, over your own programming, you become unstoppable. Because you no longer depend on anyone. You don't depend on external approval. You don't depend on validation. You validate yourself. You approve of yourself. You strengthen yourself. And that is freedom. That is power. That is true abundance. Do you want to know what attracts money? Clarity, organization, gratitude, responsibility. Money loves these environments. Money hates disorder, haste, and complaining. When your mind is disorganized, when you're constantly complaining, when you're spending more than you can afford to prove something to someone, you're sending a message to the universe. I'm not ready. And the universe respects that. It doesn't punish you. It simply responds. And it responds with more scarcity, because you are demonstrating through your actions that you don't have the structure to hold on to more, that you don't have the maturity to handle more, that you're not prepared to receive more. And the universe, which is wise, doesn't give you what you can't hold, because it would be a waste. It would be preparing you for frustration, for loss, for suffering. So it waits. It waits for you to mature. It waits for you to get organized. It waits for you to demonstrate that you are ready. And how do you demonstrate that you are ready? Through the way you take care of the little you have, through the way you organize your current life, through the way you talk about money, through gratitude for what already exists. All of these are signs, signals you send to the universe, to life, to abundance, that you are ready, that you have the structure, that you deserve more. And when these signals are consistent, when they are genuine, when they are repeated every day, the answer comes. Money starts to flow, opportunities start to appear, abundance starts to manifest, not by magic, but by alignment, by deserving, by being prepared. Now, when you start acting differently, when you begin to organize your finances, even if they are few, when you start taking better care of your space, even if it's small, when you start valuing every penny that comes in, even if it's little, you're saying the opposite. I am ready for more. And then the universe responds, and it responds with more, because you have begun to behave like someone compatible with more, because you have demonstrated through small actions that you have maturity, that you have responsibility, that you have the ability to manage. And when you demonstrate this in the small things, the universe entrusts you with the big things. It's a law. It works like that. It always has. Whoever is faithful in little will be faithful in much. Whoever takes good care of the little will receive much. It's not an empty promise. It's mechanical. It's how things work. And if you look around, you will see that the people who have a lot are people who take care, who organize, who value, who don't waste, who respect money, who respect opportunities, who respect their own time. And this respect, this appreciation, attracts more. It always attracts, because the universe responds to who you are, not who you pretend to be. You can fool people. You can appear prosperous on the outside while you're broken on the inside. But you can't fool the universe. You can't fool life. It knows, it perceives, and it responds according to the truth, to who you really are, to what you really do when no one is watching. And here's another important point. A wealth mindset isn't about earning a lot. It's about knowing how to manage what you have. Some people earn a lot and live broke. Some people earn little and grow slowly, steadily, consciously. Because what defines your future isn't how much you earn today, it's what you do with what you earn. It's what you think about what you earn. It's how you treat that money. If you treat it disrespectfully, spending without thinking, buying impulsively, using it to impress others, you're saying you don't value it. And what isn't valued doesn't stay. It goes away. It always goes. But if you treat it with respect, if you manage it consciously, if you use it intentionally, you're saying you value it. And what is valued grows. It multiplies, it remains, and it attracts more, because that's the law. What you value expands. What you devalue disappears. And this applies to everything in life, to relationships, to opportunities, to health, to money, to everything. So if you want more money, start by valuing what you already have. Start by taking care of the little things you have. Start by organizing the basics. Start by respecting every penny. And when you do this genuinely, consistently, consciously, more will come, inevitably, because you will be demonstrating that you are ready, that you deserve it, that you have the structure, and the universe always rewards those who demonstrate that they are ready. Are you taking good care of your money? Do you know where it's going? Or does it come in and disappear without a trace? This is serious, because those who don't take care of the little things aren't prepared for the big things. Abundance needs structure, and that structure begins with attention. It begins with organization. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it needs direction. You need to know what you want, where you're going, and what you're doing to get there. And that requires awareness. It requires you to stop, to look, to analyze, to decide. Because you can't get anywhere if you don't know where you're going. You can't build anything if you don't have a plan. You can't prosper if you don't have direction. And direction begins with clarity, with knowing exactly where you are now, how much you earn, how much you spend, where your money is going, what's working, what's sinking you. And when you have that clarity, when you see reality as it is, without illusions, without lies, without denial, then you can change. Because you know what needs to be changed, you know where the leaks are, you know where the mistakes are, and you can fix them. You can adjust them, you can improve them. But if you don't look, if you live on autopilot, spending without thinking, living without direction, you'll stay in the same place, always in the same place, complaining that the money doesn't come. But the money does come. The problem is that it doesn't stay, because there's nowhere for it to stay, because there's no structure to hold it. And without structure, it doesn't matter if you earn more. It doesn't matter if you have opportunities, because you'll lose everything. You always will. Until you create the necessary structure. And listen, this isn't about living in fear of spending. It's not about depriving yourself. It's about spending consciously, about knowing what's worthwhile, about making choices that respect your present moment, but also honor your future. Because every real wasted today is a setback in the life you say you want to live, and every real well spent, even if it's little, is another step towards your freedom. And freedom is what everyone wants. Freedom to choose, freedom to live as you want, freedom to not depend, freedom to not worry, and this freedom comes with abundance, but abundance comes with responsibility, with awareness, with maturity, and all of this is practiced every day, in small choices, in small decisions, in what you do with the few reais you have now, because if you can't manage 100, you won't be able to manage 1,000. If you can't manage 1,000, you won't be able to manage 10,000. It's progressive, it's gradual. That's why the universe tests you in the small things before giving you the big things, to see if you're ready, if you have the structure, if you deserve it. And when you pass the test of the small things, when you demonstrate that you know how to care, that you know how to value, that you know how to manage, then the big things come. Because you proved that you are ready. Perhaps no one has ever told you this, but you don't need to be rich to think like a rich person. You need to think like a rich person to then become rich. Because the order is this: first comes the thought, then the behavior, then the reality. And whoever tries to skip this order gets lost. They live on appearances, they live to prove themselves, they live on illusion, and sooner or later, the truth comes out, because you can't maintain an image that doesn't correspond to your essence. You can't pretend to be prosperous if you're broken inside. It doesn't work, it doesn't last. Sooner or later, the mask falls, and when it falls, it hurts, because you spent energy trying to be what you weren't, trying to impress people who don't matter, trying to prove something you didn't need to prove. And in doing so, you wasted time, you wasted money, you missed real opportunities. That's why it's so important to start from the inside out. Start by changing your thinking, then your behavior, and let the external reality be a natural consequence of this internal change. Because when it's like that, when it's organic, when it's genuine, it's sustainable, it's lasting, it's real. It's not a facade, it's not an illusion. It's the truth, it's solid, it's a real foundation for real growth. So observe your posture. When you walk down the street, do you walk with your head held high or downcast? When you talk about money, is your voice confident or insecure? When you think about the future, do you feel fear or lightness? All of this reveals your level of readiness. And if you realize that you still have a lot of fear, insecurity, shame, that's okay. Don't blame yourself. Just don't stay there. Start the strengthening process today. Because strengthening is a process. It's not an event. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens little by little, day after day, decision after decision, thought after thought. And every time you choose to think differently, you strengthen yourself. Every time you choose to act differently, you strengthen yourself. Every time you choose not to give in to fear, insecurity, shame, you strengthen yourself. And this strengthening accumulates. It grows, it solidifies, until one day you realize you are no longer the same person. You no longer have the same fears. You no longer act the same way. You have transformed. And this transformation wasn't magic, it was a construction. It was a process. It was a conscious choice, repeated consistently over time. And the first step in this strengthening is repetition. You need to repeat to your mind the truths it doesn't yet know. Repeat until it accepts them, until they become part of you. So, say aloud now, I am becoming someone who lives in abundance. And write in the comments, I choose to think like a prosperous person. Because every decision begins with an internal choice, but it is reinforced by external actions, by declarations, by commitment. And when you declare, when you speak aloud, when you write, you're making it more real. You're taking it from the realm of intention and placing it in the realm of action. And action generates results. It always does. It may not be immediate, but it's inevitable. Because every action has consequences, and when you act in alignment with what you want, the consequences are positive. They are constructive. They are transformative. And if you do this every day, if you declare, if you act, if you commit, your life will change. It's impossible for it not to change, because you will be planting new seeds every day, and everything that is planted and cared for grows. It's a law of nature. It's a law of life. You are being shaped. Perhaps you don't see the fruits yet, but if you continue planting with intention, the harvest will come. Because there is no conscious planting that doesn't yield results. There is, however, the right time, the right season, and the right preparation. And if you've heard this so far, it's because you're already in that preparation. You're already in the process. You're already planting. And if you continue, if you don't give up, if you maintain consistency, the harvest is inevitable. It will come, at the right time, in the right way. And when it arrives, you will look back and realize it was worth it. Every day of effort, every conscious choice, every time you continued even without seeing results, it was worth it. Because now you are harvesting, you are living, you are prospering, and no one can take that away from you. Because you built it, you planted it, you cared for it, and now you are reaping what you deserve. Keep going. Don't stop, even without applause, even without recognition, even when nobody believes. Because the secret that nobody sees is that true abundance is built in the silence of persistence, in the silence of those who don't need to prove anything to anyone, in the silence of those who are focused on building, not on validation, in the silence of those who know that the result will come because they are doing the necessary work. And this silence, this persistence, this constancy are rare. They are precious. They are powerful. And they are exactly what separates those who succeed from those who give up. So keep going. Persist. Build. Even when nobody sees. Even when nobody applauds. Even when it seems like nothing is changing, because it is changing. Inside. And when the internal change is complete, the external one will be inevitable. It always is. For everyone who persists, and you can be one more, you can be now. The choice is yours. It always has been. It's amazing how life begins to reorganize itself when you make a firm, silent decision to prosper. It's not a decision spoken aloud for everyone to hear, but one that happens deep within your mind, in a place where no one else enters but you. It is at this point that abundance begins to move. You won't see anything changing immediately, but you will feel it. You will feel a new lightness in your chest, a kind of security that doesn't come from outside, but is born within. And this feeling is a clear sign that something new is approaching, because true transformation never begins with fireworks. It never begins with announcements. It never begins with fanfare. It begins in silence, in the most intimate place of your consciousness, where you alone look at yourself and decide, enough. Now I change. Now I choose differently. Now I stop repeating the same patterns that keep me trapped. And this decision, however silent it may be, is powerful. It is revolutionary. Because it marks the end of one era and the beginning of another. It marks the exact moment when you stop being a victim of circumstances and start being the creator of your reality. And when that happens, when that decision is truly made, not as a superficial desire but as a deep commitment, everything begins to move. It may not be visible yet, it may not be tangible, but it is happening. Internally, energetically, mentally. And this internal change is the seed of all the external change that will come after. At this stage, you start acting differently without even realizing it. That laziness that paralyzed you begins to diminish. That urge to give up every time something goes wrong starts to lose strength. The repetition of old mental patterns begins to weaken, And then an invisible miracle happens. You stop sabotaging your own journey. This is one of the biggest signs that you are ready to receive. Because self-sabotage is what prevents most people from prospering. And few people realize they are sabotaging themselves. Because self-sabotage is subtle. It's not obvious. It's not dramatic. It happens in the small details, in the small choices, in the small excuses you give yourself. When you say you're going to do something but you don't. When you have a good idea but you don't execute it. When you receive praise but reject it. When you could charge more for your work but you charge less because you think you don't deserve it. When you see an opportunity but don't take advantage of it because you think you're not ready. All of this is self-sabotage, and it is deadly to abundance. Because while you sabotage yourself, you block, you freeze, you're blocking the flow, and the abundance that's trying to reach you can't get through. Because you yourself are closing the doors, you yourself are creating the barriers. You yourself are saying no, and as long as you keep doing that, nothing changes. No matter how much you wish it, no matter how much you pray, no matter how hard you try, if you sabotage yourself, you nullify everything, and most people live like this, without realizing it, thinking the problem is outside, thinking it's bad luck, thinking it's the world against them, but it's not. It's them against themselves. And when you realize this, when you truly see this, then you can change. Because you've identified the real problem, and you can start to correct it. Self-sabotage is self-doubt. It's abandoning projects halfway through. It's refusing praise. It's not charging a fair price for your work. It's letting opportunities pass you by for fear of not being ready. When you begin to overcome these behaviors, even slowly, you are disconnecting from a scarcity mindset. This is not only positive, it's necessary. Because abundance demands commitment to yourself. And it doesn't enter the life of someone who sabotages themselves. It doesn't enter because there's no space. Because every time it tries to enter, you close the door, consciously or unconsciously, and it respects that. It doesn't force it. It simply waits. It waits for you to stop sabotaging yourself. It waits for you to start believing in yourself. It waits for you to start acting like someone who deserves it. And when you do that, when you truly stop sabotaging yourself and begin to support yourself, to encourage yourself, to validate yourself, then the doors open. Then the path becomes clear. And the abundance, which has always been available, finally manages to reach you. And when it arrives, you realize it was always there all the time waiting. All I needed was for you to stop getting in your own way. All I needed was for you to get out of your own way. And now that you have, now that you've stopped blocking yourself, everything flows naturally, organically, as it always should have flowed. But there's more. Another invisible sign that you're about to enter abundance is when you begin to understand that everything has its time. You stop comparing yourself. You stop demanding of yourself for not being ahead. You begin to respect your own pace. And when that happens, anxiety loses ground. You stop looking at the neighbor's grass. You stop thinking you're less, and you start focusing on your own journey. That's mental maturity, and wealth requires that maturity, because money multiplies what you already are. If you are a mature person, it amplifies that. If you are still dominated by haste, comparison, and doubt, money will only increase that chaos. And you've seen this happen. You've seen people who suddenly made a lot of money and lost it all soon after, because they lacked the maturity to handle it. They lacked emotional structure. They lacked inner preparation. The money arrived but found a messy house, a chaotic mind, an unstable emotional state. And it didn't stay. It couldn't stay, because it had nowhere to lean on. It had no solid foundation. And without a foundation, any construction crumbles. That's why it's so important to build the foundation first, develop maturity first, learn to respect your own time first. Because when you do that, when you build that solid foundation, the money not only comes, it stays, and it grows, and it multiplies. Because now it has something to lean on, it has structure, it has a foundation, it has an organized home waiting for it. From then on, the change begins to be noticed not only by you, but also by those around you. People will say you're different, more centered, more confident, and you'll feel it in small things, the way you enter a room, the posture with which you talk about your goals, the ease with which you handle difficult days. None of this is luck. It's built. It's the result of the mental re-education you're undertaking. It's a direct result of all those small choices you've been making every day. Those choices that no one sees, those decisions you make alone, in the silence of your mind, those moments when you chose to think differently, to speak differently to yourself, to act in a way that aligns with who you want to become. All of this accumulates, it adds up, it creates a new version of you. And this new version, being stronger, more centered, more mature, emits a different energy, and people notice. They may not be able to explain exactly what has changed. They may not understand it rationally, but they feel it. Because energy doesn't lie. Energy is felt. And when you change your inner energy, the world around you notices. And it starts treating you differently. It starts respecting you more. It starts giving you more opportunities. Because you are emitting a different signal. A signal of someone who is ready. Of someone who knows who they are. Of someone who no longer gets lost in just anything. You begin to realize that the secret to abundance has never been about accumulating, but about flowing. About letting things circulate. Money is movement. Life is movement. And whoever tries to control everything, to hold on to everything for fear of losing, is disconnecting from the flow. Abundance requires trust, openness, space, and all of this begins with how you think and feel. Because if you live in fear of losing, you are not open to receiving. If you live trying to control everything, you block the natural flow of things. If you cling to the little you have for fear that it might be the last, you don't leave room for more to enter. It's like trying to fill a glass you're holding so tightly that it cracks. The force of the grip, which should protect, ends up destroying. And it's like that with money. It's like that with abundance. It's like that with life. The more you try to control, the less control you have. The more you try to hold on, the more slips through your fingers. The more you act out of fear, the more reasons to be afraid you create. Because fear attracts exactly what it fears. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're afraid of losing, so you act in a tense, controlling, clingy way, and that creates the exact conditions for loss. Because nobody wants to be around fear energy. Nobody wants to do business with someone desperate. Nobody wants to invest in someone who transmits insecurity. So fear, ironically, creates what it tries hardest to avoid. And only when you let go, when you relax, when you trust, do things really start to flow. People trapped in scarcity cling to the little they have. They live in tension. They don't let go, they don't invest, they don't trust, they always think there will be a shortage. And then, incredibly, there really is. Because what you fear, you attract. And when you start to change that underlying feeling, when you start to replace fear with trust, the universe responds. It's not magic, it's logic. You stop blocking the flow. You start behaving like someone who lives with more lightness. And that lightness begins to create results. Because when you are light, you make better decisions. You see opportunities that previously went unnoticed. You relate better to people. You attract more positive situations. Everything improves when you move from tension to trust. And that doesn't mean being irresponsible. It doesn't mean spending everything thinking it will fall from the sky. It means having responsibility with lightness. It means caring with confidence. It means managing without despair. And when you manage to do that, when you balance responsibility with trust, then you have found the formula. That's when you're operating at a level that attracts real abundance. Because abundance isn't just money. It's peace. It's tranquility. It's knowing that you're doing well, that you're taking care of things, that you're building, but without that deadly tension, without that paralyzing anxiety, without that blocking fear. And when you live like that, with that combination of responsibility and lightness, everything improves. Not overnight, but consistently, sustainably, really. Want a simple yet powerful exercise? Every time you fear lack, stop and take a deep breath. Tell yourself, I trust that everything is working in my favor, even if it doesn't seem like it, even if everything looks the same on the outside. This phrase is like a seed, and you need to water this seed consistently, not desperately. Because abundance doesn't arrive in the house of fear. It only enters where there is openness, trust, availability. And every time you repeat this phrase, every time you choose to trust instead of fear, You are watering the seed of abundance. You are creating mental space for it to grow. You are programming your mind to receive instead of reject. And that is powerful, more powerful than it seems, because it is at this level, at this deep level of belief and trust, that things truly change. Not just at the superficial level of actions, but at the deep level of identity, of essence, of what you truly believe about yourself and about life. And when you change at this level, when you truly begin to believe that things are working in your favor, you act differently, choose differently, respond differently. And with that, you create different results, inevitably, because action comes from belief. And if you believe that everything is working in your favor, you act like someone who trusts. And that trust attracts confirmations. It attracts situations that prove you were right to trust. And the more you experience these confirmations, the more you trust. And the more you trust, the more confirmations appear. It's a cycle, a virtuous cycle, a cycle that elevates you, that strengthens you, that transforms you. And another essential point, when abundance is arriving, you begin to disconnect from drama. You start avoiding gossip. You start walking away from pointless arguments. You begin to realize that your energy is too precious to be wasted on just anything. This behavior isn't coldness, it's focus, it's awareness. It's a way of saying, I choose to preserve my mental field, and whoever preserves their mind protects their future wealth, because a polluted mind cannot create anything new. It cannot see opportunities, it cannot make clear decisions, it becomes confused, it becomes lost, it becomes exhausted. And in that state, you don't attract abundance, you attract more confusion, more drama, more chaos, because that's what you're feeding, that's what you're putting your attention on. And attention is energy, and energy creates reality. So if you put your attention on drama, on problems, on gossip, you are creating more of that. You are inviting more of that into your life. But when you choose to disconnect, when you choose to preserve your energy, when you choose to focus on what really matters, you are creating space for the new, for the better, for abundance, because now your energy is no longer being wasted. It's being channeled, directed, used intelligently. And when you do that, when you truly protect your energy as if it were your greatest treasure, because it is, the results appear, ideas emerge, opportunities manifest. Because you have the mental space to perceive them. You have the energy to seize them. You have the clarity to act upon them. If you want to thrive, you need to protect your mind as if it were your greatest asset, because it is. Everything starts there. And if you let the world mess with your head every day, there will be no room to build anything solid. So, start saying no. Say no to conversations that hold you back, to content that brings you down, to people who are always complaining. And start saying yes to what strengthens you, to what inspires you, to what propels you forward, because you are the guardian of your own mind. No one else can do that for you. No one else has direct access to your thoughts. Only you. So only you can decide what goes in and what stays out. And if you don't consciously curate this, if you let anything in, your mind will become a garbage dump. It will accumulate negative thoughts, limiting beliefs, unfounded fears, unnecessary worries. And with a mind like that, you won't go anywhere. You'll be stuck, you'll be confused, you'll be paralyzed. But when you take control, when you consciously decide what you will feed your mind, everything changes. You gain clarity, strength, direction. And with that you build, you move forward, you prosper. Because your mind, which is your most powerful tool, is now working for you instead of against you. This mental cleansing is an essential part of the process. And it's also a sign that abundance is on its way. Because nobody takes these actions by chance. When you start to feel the urge to cleanse, to change, to grow, it's because something inside you is already being activated. It's as if a dormant part begins to awaken. And from then on, there's no going back. You may fall, but you won't stay down. Because now you know you have a choice. You know there's another way to live. And this knowledge, once acquired, cannot be unlearned. You can even pretend you don't know. You can even try to go back to old patterns. But deep down, you know. You know there's another way. You know you can choose. You know you have power over your own life. And this knowledge changes everything. Because even when you fall, even when you make mistakes, even when you temporarily return to old habits, you know you don't have to stay there. You know you can get up, you can start over, you can choose again. And this awareness, this power of choice is liberating. It's transformative. It's what takes you out of the victim position and puts you in the creator position. And when you're in that position, when you truly assume that power, nothing can stop you. Nothing can keep you trapped. Because you know you always have a choice. You can always start over. You can always change direction. And if you've made it this far and you feel this content is truly touching you, write in the comments, "I am ready for the new," and say aloud, "Abundance is finding space in my life." These words are not just words, they are declarations. And every time you declare, you reaffirm the direction you are choosing. You reinforce the commitment you made to yourself. You consciously and intentionally activate the energy of abundance. And this energy, when genuinely activated, when it comes from a place of inner truth and not from despair or neediness, is powerful. It is creative. It is transformative. Because you are not asking, you are not begging, you are declaring, you are affirming, you are assuming. And there is a huge difference between asking and declaring. When you ask, you put yourself below. You assume a position of neediness. You convey that you don't have and need someone to give it to you. But when you declare, you position yourself as equal. You assume a position of power. You convey that you are ready, that you deserve it, that you are making space to receive. And the universe, which responds to your vibration, responds differently. Respond with respect, with recognition, with commitment, because you are sending the right signal, the signal of someone who is ready. And when you are truly ready, abundance doesn't hesitate. It comes, inevitably. Continue on this path, even if no one sees, even if it seems slow, because every conscious step you take is building the foundation of the life you want to live. Abundance is already on its way. And the greatest sign of this is that finally you are beginning to act like someone who believes, like someone who trusts, like someone who deserves, like someone who is ready. And when you act like this, when you truly embody this energy, the universe has no choice. It responds. It always responds, because that is the law. As within, so without. What you believe internally manifests externally. And if you believe you are ready for abundance, if you act like someone who already lives in it, if you think, speak, and decide from that place of certainty, abundance manifests. Not instantly, but inevitably, because you have created the necessary internal conditions. And when the internal conditions are aligned, the external adjusts. It always adjusts, for everyone who applies it. And you are applying it. You are building, you are transforming. And with each day, with each choice, with each aligned thought, you are closer, more prepared, more ready. And abundance knows this. It perceives it. And it's coming to meet you at the right time, in the right way. And when it arrives, you will be ready, because you have done the necessary inner work. And this work